Welcome to our fourth in a continuing series on the book of Shmuel, or Samuel, and the founding of Jewish monarchy. Episode 4. This week we begin chapter 2 and are immediately confronted with the perplexity of Chana's famous prayer. How do these seemingly disparate statements hang together, and why, as Rashi and others point out, is she continuously referring back to the misery she experienced at the hands of Penina? The solution we offer is to see Chana casting herself as a new Naomi, with the hopes of being the progenitor of kingship. All this and more. Thanks for joining us, and please consider sharing this recording with others.
You bet I will.
All right, so just to by way of very brief recap, or actually maybe
that was a pun.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was actually punishment.
Yeah.
Who wants to recap Perek Aleph for us in super basic
condensed form?
Stephen? Charles?
Chana, Penina.
A cast of characters.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters that are introduced that have basically nothing to do with the story. Like the overarching, like a whole character arc and Shmuel, and not that it's a literary work, like
right.
To think of that, like, but like these characters, they're there for like the very beginning, and that's it.
Fleetingly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole book, the characters that we're introduced to don't really make it through much of the book.
Right.
Okay, I hear that. What else? What transpired in Perek Aleph?
Drunkenness,
Well, before that, before the drunkenness.
Wanting a baby.
Wanting a baby.
Right. We had. Well,
So Chana is barren, and she gets bothered by Penina, and because of that, there's discord in the home, and
right.
Her husband Elkanah, who is the perennial Mishkan goer, tries to resolve it by saying, "Well, you got me. I'm better than 10 sons."
Right, and it's interesting that the pasuk does say that Elkanah loved Chana.
Yeah.
So like, I felt like we didn't mention this, but I feel like maybe he wasn't reading the room, and it was a little tone deaf. But based on the pasuk that says he loved her, I gotta believe that the Torah is telling us that for a reason. That maybe he's like trying to comfort her, like l'shem shemayim. Like he's not just being like, all right, quit complaining.
He's more dense than mean.
Right. This is
Fair.
not mean. This is him trying to be like if you want a son because you want love, like I give you love, like I love you. You know, like this is not.
Right. What about me? Why am I not filling that void for you?
Yeah. Like this is not.
And her response to that is nothing. In other words, she doesn't say, well, either I disagree with you.
Right,
and
I feel a lack in my life.
Right. Rachel says to Yaakov, "Give me children, if not, I'm dead." She doesn't
gets mad.
Right, and Chana doesn't say any. Elkanah is like, "Well, you got me. I'm better than 10 sons." And Chana, we record no response to that.
It also says that Yaakov loved
Rachel,
right? So again, the interplay is kind of parallel in both of those situations, where the husband clearly loves the wife, and is trying to be supportive in whatever way he can, and the woman has a situation that the husband can't help with.
Right.
Jeez, this sounds familiar.
So she goes to the Mishkan, distraught, and she offers up this davening that is unusual, and Eli flags it as she's drunk, right? And then she has to correct him and say, "No, I'm not drunk. I'm bitter of spirit, and I'm pouring out my heart before God." And then he gives her a bracha, sends her home, and the bracha seems to work because she gets pregnant, and she has Shmuel, who kind of sounds like she wanted to name him Shaul, but okay, she names him Shmuel, and then she has to bring him back to the Mishkan, right? That was part of her promise was he'll be dedicated to God, and he won't have a. Well, it sounds like dedicated to God means he's going to work in the Mishkan.
Right, which Right, which you said, how do we even know that a kid can work in the Mishkan? Who wants the kid? How do you know? They don't
Right.
have a Mishkan daycare program.
Right, right,
Like
for
the
sure.
kid's 2 years old. Like he's gonna soil things and break things.
Right, right. So she nurses him. So she first doesn't bring him when Elkanah's like, maybe you gotta fulfill your neder. She nurses him and brings him, and immediately we get into this conflict of like Shmuel sort of butting heads with Eli. That was the Gemara who says that like Shmuel paskin the halacha, and Eli was a little perturbed by that. But the bottom line is she shows up and she says, "This is the kid that I davened for," and now here he is.
Right.
I'm offering
he's
him.
not Chayav Misa because he's 2 years old. Like how
Right.
are you gonna hold that against him?
Right, right,
That was what bothered me. I think.
right.
The
And
kid's not even a bar mitzvah. Like cut him some slack.
right. So now, okay, I think that takes us up to where we're at in Parak Bet. Now,
Which Gemara was that, by the way? I wonder if
I have to
anybody
go back
comments
and
on
look.
that.
I'm pretty sure it's Baba Kama, but I can go back and look.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first 10 psukim in Parak Bet are what are known as Tfilat Chana, and this is. No, we're going to read it, and then I'm going to ask for your opinion on what this is, because it is very challenging, I think, to understand on its face. We'll do our best. Would someone like to read?
Okay, Vatipalel Chana v'tomar alatz libi baranai karanai ki ein biltecha ve'ein sur kelohenu. Chana prayed and said, "My heart exalts in Hashem, my pride has been raised through Hashem, my mouth is open wide against my antagonist." No, that's not right.
Yeah.
Did I read the wrong one?
Started
No,
in
2-1.
Oh!
Pasuk Aleph.
No, I skipped a line.
Oh, okay.
Vatipalel Chana v'tomar alatz libi baranai karanai ki ein biltecha ve'ein sur kelohenu. Al tarbu tadabru.
No. You're.
You're not reading Pasuk Aleph?
Vatipalel Chana v'tomar alatz libi b'Hashem, Rama karni b'Hashem.
Oh, Rama Karni Rachav Pi Al Oivai Ki Samachti Bishuatecha. I don't know how I missed that twice. I don't know. That's weird.
At least you're consistent.
Ugh. In Kadosh Karanai Ki In Biltech Vein Sur Keloheinu. Oh, okay. There's none as holy as Hashem, for there's none besides you. There's no rock like our God. Al Tarbu Tidabru Gavoa.
One sec. Let's go pasuk by pasuk. Vatitbalach Chana v'tomar. So Chana davens as follows: Alatz libi badonai. My heart. Alatz is kind of a tricky word. They have here exalts. I don't know if you guys have any other translations.
Mox? Is that late Sanas?
No, alatz. What is the shorsh of alatz? I'm trying to think of another example of alatz. Let's see what they have here. They just have alatz as rejoice.
Okay.
Yeah, alot hasadeh. So alatz libi b'Hashem, my heart exalts in Hashem. Rama karni badonai. How would you translate that?
My horn is raised.
My horn is raised. So
God.
they translate it euphemistically here. I have triumphed through the Lord.
It says my pride has been raised.
My pride has
but
been raised.
It really means a horn, right?
Yeah, it really means a horn, and the horn is symbolic of what? In the ancient world, we had this in Sefer Daniel. What's that?
Virility?
Virility is
Power.
interesting.
Power, strength.
Power, strength. What else?
Kingship?
Kingship. Beautiful. Shimmy pulls out the winner.
That crown before, you looked at me funny, so I said...
Oh no, I didn't hear. I thought I heard crown. Yes.
Karen Crown.
Yes, carrying crown. We had in Daniel the animal or the monster that had the 10 or 11 horns.
The multiple horns.
Right, and those all represented Malchus. So this is the first sort of we'll call it an oblique allusion to Malchus. We're going to get more explicit in the discussion of Malchus later. But so first, she's offering a tefillah over here, Vatit Palel Chana. So she's davening, and she's talking about her. I don't know, what would you call this? Praise of Hashem? Alatz libi b'Hashem, Rama karni b'Hashem. It's my heart exalts. I have triumphed through Hashem. Rachav pi al oivai. Literally,
My
this
mouth
is
was like open wide against my enemies.
Okay, so here I think there's two images that are interesting. One I saw is that I'm smiling over my enemy, Rachav Pi, like have the face be wide means like have a smile. But I think really the translation here is to contrast it with when you're silent. So Rachav Pi means I can open my mouth. I have something to say against my enemies, as opposed to keeping my mouth closed because I can't say anything.
Who's our enemies?
What's that?
Who's the enemy?
Oh, we're gonna get to that in half a second. Ki samachti bishuasecha, because I rejoice in your deliverance. Okay, so just to again set the stage. She's just she's brought Shmuel to the Mishkan. She's dropping him off, and this is her prayer before exiting stage left. Okay.
It's like a mixture of Shvach and Huda.
Shvach and Hoda. Okay.
Because that she got this stage, but also like how she got this stage, or how she got this place.
Tell me more. What does that mean? How she got to this place? What is she saying that helps you?
It's the end of chapter 1, beginning of chapter 2. So she
Yeah.
sort of has to like sort of like in one pasuk or one tefillah think about what's happened up till now, but also like give hope and guidance
for the future.
For the future.
Okay, I like that. Who's the enemy?
Penina.
So that's Rashi, square on the head. What does he have? My Rachav Pi al Oivai against Penina. So in her tefillah, and
but Penina's only one person, and
that's great. Okay, so yes, that's a very fair diuk that Oivai seems to be plural, and Penina is singular. Fair.
These children.
Huh?
Penina's children. Oh, so that's very interesting. We're gonna get to more of that shortly.
Right?
Yeah, we're gonna get to Penina and what happened to her children shortly. Let's keep going. Ein kadosh kadonai. There is no one holy like Hashem. Ki ein biltecha. There is none beside you. Ve'ein tzur kelohenu. And there is no
Rock.
tzur. Tzur you have as rock. Any other translations for tzur?
So
Form?
So the Gemara reads this almost as a play on words, that there is no one who forms like God, like a tzur, like a formation, because God creates creators who create. That's that's supposed to be the chat. That like an artist can create something, but then it's done. God creates artists who create art, right? And that only God can do, says the Gemara. Although I think we're almost at the point with AI where machines can make machines who make machines.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah. But that is Ein Sor Kelokenu. Al Tarbu Tidaberu Gavoa Gavoa. Don't talk anymore in such a don't speaking in a haughty manner, I guess is how I would translate that most literally. Again, who are we talking about over here? Well, I'm sorry, let me finish the puzzle. Yetze atak mi pichem. Don't let any arrogance come out of your mouth. Ki el deos Adonai v'lo nitkanu alilot. Because Hashem knows everything, and by Him, lo with a vav, not with an aleph, all the actions are measured.
But it's written with an aleph.
So there's a kri niktiv. So yes, Shimu, exactly what you said is completely right. So Rashi again, al tidabru tidaberu, kol gasei haruach asher sha'atem matzlechas ubishvil Penina shahayta mikael leha himedaberes. So she's again in her tefillah, which is supposed to be either shvach v'hoda. I guess we said is how we started out. She's already in 3 psukim twice gone after Penina.
This is the first time.
Right, she's sticking it to her.
This is the first time like a Sarah has been called like an enemy, or a sister.
No, that's why a co-wife is called a tzara, because the assumption is
that they're enemies.
To take it to the next.
That they're actually antagonistic. Well, I mean, Hagar and Sarah.
No, I think, but was there any Lashon used by, let's say, Sarah that my enemy, like that type of?
So Hagar complains to the Malach that Sarah is oppressing her, and the Malach says, "Go back and be oppressed by Sarah."
Which is weird. That I never understood.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see a lot more similarities between the story of Sarah. I mean, both this Haftorah and Sarah's story are both read on Rosh Hashanah. Keshes giborim chatim. The bow of the mighty is, I think they translate it as shattered. Chatim is like in chitim in pieces, to be broken up into pieces. V'nechshalim arzu chayil, and the, what do they have here? The faltering are filled up with strength, are girded with strength. Who is she talking about? What is she talking about? Any clue? Does this have anything to do with her life, and anything whatsoever?
I mean, David and Goliath? I don't know.
You read it again?
The bows of the mighty are broken, and the faltering are girded with strength.
Again, I mean, that could also be her and Penina. Like, she had so many people and so many kids, and...
Oh, because we're going to get to more with Penina right now. Sveim balechem niskeru. Those who, so there's two ways to read this. Those who were sated, balechem sveim balechem. Those who were sated with bread, niskeru, had to end up going out to work because they didn't have anything. Or sveim, those who were sated, balechem niskeru, had to go out and earn their bread. Ureivim basically means the same thing. Ureivim chadelu, and those who are starved are now not hungry anymore. They're done being starved. Ad akara yalda shiva, the barren one has given birth to 7. V'rabat banim umlala, and the one who had many children is, I like this, is forlorn. Bereft. Yeah, you get to break out like some of the best English words for this.
Yeah. We don't get to use antinomian.
So the one, Sveim balechem niskaru re'evim chadelu, again, I don't know what this is in reference to. There, to my knowledge, there is no history in Chana or Penina's life about having bread, not having bread, or anything related to hunger. And then the next part is where people really try to jump through hoops. The barren one gives birth to 7. So, spoiler alert, Chana's going to have more
kids than we know about.
Chana does have more kids, but not 7.
5.
She has 5, right.
Yeah.
She has 5.
It's a mixture of boys and girls, not
Yes.
7.
It doesn't say sons. It doesn't say sons.
But a lot of people think it means 7 sons. I've heard it mentioned.
7 sons. Okay.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Either way, she definitely doesn't have 7 of anything. Right. So then we basically get stuck with, well, it like 7 is kind of the magic number, but really we just mean she's having
about somebody else.
So that's going to be my argument. V'rabas banum umlala, and then the barren woman, I'm sorry, the mother of many is forlorn. So that's what you were mentioning before. So there's this medrash from Chazal that every time Chana had a child, Penina lost 2 children. So Penina had 10 children. That was Elkanah saying, I'm better for you than 10 sons. Who are the 10 sons? Penina has the 10 sons. So every time Chana has a kid, Penina loses 2 kids. And it sounds like...
How could he say that? Sorry, guys. But how could he say that to her when she's depressed? And he's referencing...
He was trying to help.
Sons.
Right.
It's a better way to cheer her up.
I guess what he's saying is, like, what do you want? You want to be like her? I'm better for you than everything she's got. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. It explains it, but it doesn't explain.
She's putting down these massive curses. You know?
Right. And so then at the end, Penina comes begging to Chana, like, please, enough with this. You know, let me keep the last 2 kids.
That's why she'll okay.
Yeah. Then we have Adonai me'mis u'mechayeh. God kills and brings to life. Morid Sheol, he sends someone down to Sheol, was like the netherworld, the pit, yeah, but it means like the afterlife. Vayal, and raises up. So on the bare face of it, this is a source for Tchias HaMesim. I'll make an argument to try and read this a different way, I guess, once we finish the whole song.
Did they say that Korach's sons went to Sheol when they were on a ledge or something? Yes, there's definitely Lam Natzech Libnei Korach, that they were going down, and they like as they're going down to hell, they have a hearer of Teshuvah, and so God makes a little platform for them, and they basically spend eternity saying Moshe Emes, and I thought they got out.
No, they're somewhere underground. The Gemara talks about an Arab tour guide who can take you to the spot in the desert where if you put your ear to the ground, you can hear them saying Moshe Emes, the Anachnu Badayim, or whatever it is.
Why is that not?
I thought, how did they not get out? Because I thought the whole thing was the sons of Korach got out. They did their whole Tehillim thing, and then they had a bunch of babies, so that
there has to be some there has to be some remnant of
They kept on their shoulders. The last person's,
Yeah. And he's like, "Good luck with you. Good luck to you guys."
Right.
I'm out of here.
But again, on the face of it, this is a non sequitur. She's just to review. She's talked about Hashem. I'm exalted through Hashem, and I'm able to now smile at my enemies. However we want to translate that. And there's no one like God. He is amazing. Anyone who speaks haughtily, they're going to be they'll be shut up and brought low because God knows everything that's going on. And not only that, he breaks the bows of the strong, and the people who are not so strong, he gives them strength. The people who had a lot of bread now have no bread. The people who were hungry, they now have enough. The people who were barren will have children. The people who had children are not going to, right? We're going to get a lot of this and its opposite. We'll see that throughout the whole parak, actually, even after the song. But these all seem like disjointed things, right? Some of it maybe we can read back into Chana's life about the barren and but like what that has to do with bread or being memis umechaya. Unless you feel differently, I don't see the connection one pasuk to the next or what the theme is throughout the whole tefillah. Adonai morishu ma'ashir. Hashem makes poor and makes you rich. Mashpil af meromeim. He casts you down and lifts you up. So again, we've got this theme of the thing and its opposite, but why we're picking rich and poor, and why is rich and poor coming after Memis Mechai? None of that seems readily understandable. Nor, I guess I'll just ask it more as a question. This is Chana's tefillah. Does this sound like prayer to you, or does it just sound like a list of things that God does?
This is when she should be accused of being drunk.
Right. This sounds a little bit more all hodgepodge all over the place than anything else. Here we're going to get some phraseology that I think is a little familiar. Meki me'afar dal me'ashpos yarim evyon. He raises up the poor from the garbage pile. He takes the needy person higher. Lahoshiv im nidivim, to place them with the princes. The kisei kavod yanchilem, and they will inherit a throne of honor. Kila Adonai mitzuke eretz, the yashes alehem tevel, for the pillars of the earth belong to Hashem. He has set the world on them. Ragle chasidav yishmor, he guards the feet of his chasidim. Urashayim b'choshech yidamu, but the wicked ones will perish in darkness. Ki lo b'koach yigbar ish, because it's not through strength that man will prevail. Adonai yechatu mirivav, the enemies of Hashem will be again yechatus, to be broken up into pieces. Allah b'shamayim yir'aim, he's going to thunder against them in Shamayim. Adonai yadin afsei aretz, Hashem judges to the ends of the earth. V'yitain oz l'malko, he gives strength to the melech. The yarem keren mishicho, and they have here triumph to his anointed one. Again, we started with the Karen, we end with the Karen, but here it's much clearer that the Karen is a reference to what they would use to literally anoint. There were two utensils that they would use to anoint the king. There's either a pach or a Karen. You either have like the horn kind of, what's that?
A bottle.
Yeah, jug or a horn. And this is the first place where we get any reference explicitly to Mishicho. The understanding here is it's a reference back to the Melech. So when we saw way back in when we were reviewing Dvarim, there's no mention that the king has to be anointed, but here we get the first inkling that the king needs to be anointed, because we're putting together V'yitain oz l'malko v'yarim kerem mishicho. We assume that's a reference to the same person.
When you have a shira in Tanakh, is it considered to be like a nevuah, or is it considered like she composes it simply on her own? Or?
So that's a great question. I will try to give you two klolim. One is if it was canonized by the Anshe Knesset Hagdola in Tanakh, then it's there for a perpetual reason. Meaning she could have had a shira, and the Anshe Knesset Hagdola could have decided not to include it in Sefer Shmuel. If it's written by a Navi and it's canonized by the Anshe Knesset Hagdola, then the assumption is it has eternal purpose and message. It happens to also be that Chana is a Neviah. She's one of the Shiva Neviot, and the way they know that is from probably from this tefillah. This idea that Yitain oz l'malko v'yarim kerem mishicho is part of her prophecy.
Okay, so then when she's saying things like Levi, we're almost saying it's not really her own word. It's like
it's Vatit Palel Chana.
Yeah, but
it's not Bat Homar.
If it's a nevuah, doesn't that mean that it's like not her?
So that's interesting. Devorah has a song, right? Yeah. And that's also Nevi'as.
Yeah.
And it's for a national kind of prophecy. Mm-hmm. So I hear what you're saying, that maybe her tefillah is not a personal tefillah, it's a national tefillah. And I've seen people who try to read this, they actually call this, instead of the tefillah of Chana, they call it the national anthem. That she's talking about the Jewish nation as a whole, and we're gonna be conquer over our enemies, and we're going to be raised up, and I think that's a fair reading. Rashi seems to take it personally, meaning when she talks about Oivai and she talks about the haughty, she's talking about Penina. But I wouldn't disagree with that reading at all. I think it's fair to say that it could be a national kind of a prayer. It's hard. Shiras Dvorah is called a shir. This is not Shiras Chana, this is not Vatidaber Chana, this is Vatit Palel, which is supposed to be self-reflexive. Now, Malbim, among others, makes the argument that the first 9 psukim are not tefillah, that the first 9 psukim are her kind of, the entree into her tefillah. Her tefillah is really just the last pasuk, that Hashem should thunder against his enemies and set up a king for the Jewish people. That's really what she's praying. That's her request. Her bakasha is that there should be malchus. What's that?
Where's her husband?
Where maybe he's standing right next to her.
Or maybe he's at home.
No, he's not at home. They haven't left yet. We're going to get to that as soon as we try to make heads or tails of this. Okay. Now I will give you my attempt at reading this differently, and again, I will preface with the fact that I haven't seen this mentioned anywhere else. I think if we recall last week, we were trying to compare the story of Chana and the story of Naomi. And I think if you do that in this shir, or this tefillah, things become a lot clearer. And we can just pick up from the 5th pasuk. Saveim balechem niskaru ureivim chadelu. It could be that this whole tefillah is essentially talking about Naomi. Naomi is the one who, she had bread and then she became hungry, right? She had children and she lost them, and then she had them again through Rus. Hashem is memis u'machayim or she'ol vayal. So her son, if you view the situation with Rus and Boaz as Yibum, so then her son has now had some sort of kiyum. He's been brought back in some sort of way through the Yibum. His line is perpetuated. That's Hashem being memis first, u'mechaye. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It should be Hashem is mechaye u'memis, right? Why would you start with death and then be mechaye? So the only, other than Tchias HaMesim, the only other form of that is through the perpetuating of the line through Yibum. Hashem morishu mashir. This is again the same thing that happened to Naomi. She had wealth and then she lost her wealth, and then she was brought low. Mashpil meromeim. Mekim miafar dal meashvot yarim aviom. This whole like lahoshiv im nidivim. she was the one who was now joined Boaz's family. Boaz was the Nadib. He was the prince of the generation. Raglei Chasidav Yishmor. So I would argue that this is an allusion to the story of Rus going down to the granary and laying by the feet of Boaz. Raglei Chasidav Yishmor. And then Kilo Bakoach Yigbar Ish. Right? Not through the strength is a man going to prevail. The only reason that the whole scenario prevailed is because Naomi perpetuated it forward, and that eventually leads to the establishing of the Malchus, and that's the reference here, Vayitain Oz Lamalko, that right, Oz is a reference to Boaz, V'yarim Kerem Mishicho. Then it also makes sense just to go back about the 7 sons. That's what the Shchenos said to Naomi, that Rus is better for you than 7 sons. Otherwise, you have to play funny games with the math, and it never works out. Why would we be talking about 7 sons? We were either talking about 10 before by Elkanah, or Chana has 6 kids and are not. The only other reference to 7 sons is by Megillas Rus. So I think if you read this whole thing as essentially Chana casting herself in the role of Naomi and saying, all of this that's going on here with the birth of Shmuel is a precursor to Malchus the same way Naomi was a precursor to Malchus. Then the argument is that she wants to see Shmuel as the continuation of that line towards Malchus. He's either she's trying to position him as the child who should be considered for Malchus, or she's saying, I'm Naomi 2.0, right? So whatever was going to happen through Naomi should happen through me, in that Shmuel, this miraculous child, is going to either be the melech that we're talking about at the end of the song, or something similar to that kind of line of reasoning. Did that land? Does that make sense? You're a little perplexed.
You're saying I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Is there any reason for me to believe that Chana has any knowledge of the story of Ruth and Naomi at this point? Because, I mean, they're kind of not quite contemporaries.
No. There's several generations between Rus and right now David's father is alive, give or take.
Right, Yishai.
Right.
Right. Before that's Obed. And then
Boaz.
Right. Right. So Naomi was, I mean, it's like, maybe 50 years before.
I hear you.
Okay, I'm just saying, but that being said, like, who says that they knew that Chana knows about this, the situation?
Again, if this is prophecy, right, and the Navi who's writing Sefer Shmuel is the same Navi who wrote Megillas Rus, then whatever words are here, whether or not Chana knew of the events the way you and I know of stuff by reading in the news, there's something in the, we'll call it the spiritual air, that is continuous. In other words, either she said these words verbatim and she knew to say them through Nevi'as, or the words that we're getting here are from the Navi, and they're either put into her mouth, or we're trying to convey the same idea. Meaning, whatever she's davening for, the roots of that are tied to Naomi's story.
Could be.
Okay, I'll take
could be.
Okay. Fine. The only other, there's 2 other small points to make. The first is that, just in terms of looking at the book as a whole and the structure of the book, the end of Shmuel Bet, chapter 22, ends with basically a tefillah by David HaMelech that parallels the themes in that parak parallel the themes in this song. So you have the Sefer itself, kind of bookended by these songs with the same thematic elements to sort of show you how all of it is tied together. The other thing that I won't point out in too much detail, because we're already a little behind, is the words that we read from Chana. Several of them are included in Tehillim Perek Kuf Yud Gimel. You might recognize them from Hallel. Mikimimi Ofar Adol, Me'ashpos Yarim Evyon, Lahoshivim Im Nidivim, right?
Yeah.
All of that should sound familiar and is familiar because David HaMelech essentially plagiarized Chana's tefillah over here. Okay, that takes us through Pasuk Yud. Now, the interlude is over. We're going to go back to the story. And again, we're going to get a lot of contrast. Just like her tefillah was the thing and its opposite, there was contrasting rich and poor, hungry and sated. We're going to get the same thing now, but on a more macro level, comparing Shmuel, the kid, versus Eli's kids, Chafni and Pinchas. Vayelech Elkanah haramasa al beito, and Elkanah, and like kind of parenthetically, probably also Chana, went back to Ramasa, to his home. Vahanar, and this is interesting to point out, we saw this before, that Shmuel is called a nar. Usually a nar is like a young boy, not a child, like a yelad. But okay, the nar hayam misharis es Adonai es pnei Eli hakohen. He served God by serving Eli HaKohen.
Before.
Right. Es Pnei, right? Remember, they came up to see Es Pnei Hashem, and now he's serving Hashem Es Pnei Eli HaKohen. So Chazal say from here that if you, one of the ways to perform the avoda is to kind of be mashamish talmidei chachamim. If you serve the Gadol Hador, so you're involved in service of God.
As you said before, like there's no way Eli would want a baby or that's
right.
What it has to be.
Right.
Somehow
Maybe the dude was like just a genius, like these 2-year-olds who can play chess at grandmaster level.
Right. That's essentially, that's some of what the Medrash was giving us earlier. That Shmuel is like the Doogie Howser of his time. That he's at 2, he's already paskening halacha, and he's right. The part of the purpose of that is to say that he's not your average 2-year-old. He's there and can be mashares. He can do something that's worth being done. The other thing I'll point out, we referenced this before a little bit, the parallels between the Sarah story and the Chana story. So by the Akedah, you have Abraham taking his child and offering him up to God, right? So here you have Elkanah and his wife offering their son up to God, but the way they do that is instead of shechting him, they leave him in the Mishkan and then return home, just like Abraham afterwards has a bracha of children after he had after the Akedah, so too Chana also has a bunch of children after this whole event.
Yitzhak was how old by the Akedah?
37.
Right, so I'm saying, so it's almost
37.
This is a stretch, but I'm saying to take a 37-year-old and sort of taking the slaughter versus a 2-year-old and almost like abandoning. It's equal sar.
Right, you're definitely giving so. And what's interesting is that Yitzchak by the Akedah is called a nar, v'ani v'hanar nelcha ad ko. Right, that I'm going to go with the nar, and here you have so the 37-year-old is probably not a nar, and Shmuel's also probably not a nar, but they're both called nar. Ubnei Eli, bnei Bilyal, and the sons of Eli. This is pasuk Yibet. The sons of Eli are bnei Bilyal. They are
sons of uncouthness.
Right. Lo yadu es Adonai, they paid no attention to Hashem.
That's pretty heavy criticism.
Yeah, super heavy criticism.
Wants it back, right?
So it's super heavy criticism. There's a lot to unpack over here. First of all, and this is only my reading, and you can take it for what it's worth. The Bnei Eli, we could just say, and Chafni and Pinchas were Bnei Blial. Why do we have to point out that they are the Bnei Eli, the nameless Bnei Eli, who we know the names from before, are Bnei Blial? To me, it's almost a veiled criticism of Eli, that the children of Eli are children of lawlessness, meaning they're
jerks.
No. Essentially, Eli is the one who's Blial, right?
Right.
The children of lawlessness are children. I'm sorry. The children of Eli are children of lawlessness. Well, then that means Eli is lawlessness, right? By the commutative property of lawlessness.
I think he's given blame.
He is blamed, but he's not. He didn't do the bad.
But he's called by it because he allowed his son.
No, Aaron Cohen wasn't given blame, and that's an interesting comparison. Why did you think of Aaron Cohen?
Interesting of Eli as quote unquote Cohen Gadol.
Okay.
Wait. What would Aaron be blamed for?
Not of you, maybe.
But not of an
Was Moshe blamed for the fact that his descendant.
So that's a little less explicit in the psukim than Nadav and Avihu. When did we have Bnei Belial before in our very short time with this sefer? So Chana comes to the Mishkan and she's davening, and he calls her Shikora, and she says, "Don't take me for Bat Belial," right?
Yeah.
So again, by the commutative property of Belial, what does that mean that Chana thinks Belial means?
I'm not your daughter?
No.
Because he's Belial, you know.
No.
Or you could be saying, I'm not like you, pal.
He says.
He thinks you want.
He says you're drunk. She says, "Don't call me Bat Belial." So Bat Belial, she says means drunk. Right?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say that like everybody knew that Eli's Belial, like not a good guy. So he's like, "You're drunk." He's like, "I'm not from one of your sons. I'm not like one of you people."
Also true.
Right? Like that's like her comeback. That's like you know. Like, hey, I'm not from the Eli family.
Right.
I'm actually here sincerely. You might be in charge of the kahuna, but you're the jerk pal, not me.
Right. You're the
jerk store called and they're running out of you.
That's funny. Not like Monty Python. That's funny stuff.
Monty Python.
Okay. So let's hold on to this notion that it's that one of the possible interpretations of Belial is to be drunk. It's going to pay off. Well, okay, we'll run through a couple of psukim, and then we'll have to go back next week. So the Bnei Eli are bad dudes. That is very clear. Lo yadus Hashem. They don't pay any attention to God. Umishpat hakohanim esa'am. Now here is how the Kohanim used to deal with the people. Kol ish zoveach zevach uba nar hakohen. Again, we have the word nar over here. So the guy comes to bring his korban, and the kohen nar comes up kivashel habasar when the meat is cooking from the korban. V'amzaleg shalosh hashinaim biyado, and he's got 3-pronged fork in his hand. V'hikabekior obedud, and he starts banging on the cauldron over there. Obakalachas. There's lots of different kinds of cauldrons. We have a cauldron, a kettle, or a pot. Obaparur, or a even smaller version of the pot. Kol asher ya'aleh hamzaleg yikach hakohen bo. Anything that he can poke out of the cauldron over there, that's what the kohen will take. Kacha yasu l'chol Yisrael habayim sham b'Shilo. That's how they did it to any of the Jews who came to Shiloh. Gam b'terem yikturnu sachelev uba nar hakohen. Even before the fat is all cooked up, the nar kohen would come. V'amar le'ish hazoveach, and he'd tell the guy who's bringing this poor Jew who's bringing his korban. The kohen, this is Eli's son, says to him, "Tna basar litzlos lakohen." Give me some of this cooking meat to the kohen. V'lo yikach mimcha basar mevushal kimchai. In fact, I'm not even going to accept it when it's cooked. I want it raw. I'm taking it before I'm even supposed to take it. Vayomer alav ha'ish kater yikterun kayom hachelev. Let me just cook up the chelev. V'kach lecha kasher ta'aven nafshecha, and then you can take whatever you desire. The Amar, and Eli's son, replies, "Lo, ki atatitain vimlo lakachti b'chazaka." Give it to me, or I will take it by force. Vati chatan hanarim gdola me'od. Yes,
which is
interesting. Vati chatan hanarim gdola me'od, and this is the sin of the Na'arim is very great. Es pnei Adonai. The before Hashem, again the face of Hashem. Remember, we mentioned this before. Ki na'atsu hanashim es minchas Adonai, because they are treating the offering to Hashem in a na'atsu they have here as impiously.
It says
disgracefully. Okay, so this whole story is not what you would expect when you read. The Bnei Eli are lawless people who don't know God. They're super evil men who take meat slightly before it's cooked. I get it. Like they didn't let the guy offer the.
Down.
Okay, they're shaking the guys down. Like on a scale of 1 to bad, like how bad is what they're doing? And we'll skip a couple psukim.
It's like one step away from running a meth empire. That's what I'm saying.
Sure, it just reads like Asa, right? Like his whole.
Ooh, I like that. That's interesting.
Been, taken over by.
Give me the meat. Give it now.
Like you're not in control of yourself in any form or fashion, whether it's from hunger or your
That's Belial.
urges from the people who are you're dealing with. That you just become like a base of a human being.
They're just fully enmeshed in their gluttonous behavior. We'll skip for 30 seconds to Pasuk 22. The Eli zaken me'od v'shamas kol asher yasum banav. Eli is very old, and he hears everything that his kids are doing. L'chol Yisrael, to all the Jews. V'yis asher yishkevunes hanashim hatzova'os pesach ol moed. And the fact that they are sleeping with the women who are coming to bring up their korbanos by the entrance of the tent. Okay, that sounds like pretty people good. Who are lo yadu Hashem. Like that sounds like the thing that maybe you want to kind of focus on.
Right.
Vayomer lehem, and Eli says to his sons, Lama tasunka devarim ha'ela asher anochi shomeas divrechem ra'im me'es kol ha'am ela al banan ki lo tova shamua asher anochi shomea ma'avirim es Hashem. No good what you are doing. Is he? Maybe we'll. I think we should come back to this. My question is going to be a couple issues. One is if they're sleeping around with these women, then why isn't that the focus? Like we hear they're bad, then we hear what is their cardinal sin? They're stealing a bunch of like uncooked korbanos meat, and then the part that I skipped is, by the way, Shmuel is super awesome, and then we come back to, by the way, they're also engaging in essentially like adultery or rape, or I don't know what this is, and then Eli disciplines them. So
it doesn't even work.
Doesn't work, right?
Right. And the other question that I have, like, they don't die for a while.
Yes, we have to let that one percolate a little bit more, because we gotta first figure out.
It's a long time before like the Plishtim come in and hack everyone to pieces.
Yeah, that is true. We're also going to see, and that's sort of the reason I pointed out that the Song of Chana leads us into this idea of the thing and its opposite. Here, the thing is the sons of Eli are big-time sinners. Its opposite is, and Shmuel, who's essentially being raised by Eli, is super perfect, fantastic. Right? Okay, more...
Right, why doesn't that save Eli? Why doesn't that count as close for him?
Something. To be continued.
Okay, that's it for now. I'm so glad you were able to join us on this holy quest for a better understanding of Hashem's Torah.